So, like Mark said, this is a homepage of the account. It'll show you a quick overview of your devices. This particular account has one of our extreme temperature sensor modules and has two temperature sensors attached to that. They also have one gateway in the office. The gateways aren't registered and on the accounts, but it's present because these are communicating. If I hit refresh here, there we go. It says you'll see the last heard from right here and current time. So we know that the devices are still communicating with our servers through the gateway. And these are current temperature readings in their freezers. If there is any active alerts, that would be seen right here as well. I'll get to alerts in just a minute. Quickly going through step by step here. The account settings, this is where they'll set up their contact information, any other preferences, very simple, straightforward stuff here. If you would like to receive text message alerts, this is where you establish your cell phone devices on the account, and other just miscellaneous settings. To begin the account, once they're registered, they'll come to their device page and have the option to register a new module. There is a sticker on the back of all our devices that has a serial number and a MAC address. You'll put those here, give the device a name that you think is appropriate, whatever makes the most sense to the user. Hit click save, and if you've successfully entered the proper numbers, that device is now active on your account. And once it's communicating with the server, you are able to receive data from there. And your device will be listed right here. So we'll just click on their device. And kind of the same information that you saw on the homepage. The homepage would obviously have a lot more data if they had more devices on the account, but this is the one particular sensor module. And before I just keep going, if anyone has any questions, feel free to jump in and stop me. I typically just don't stop talking until we get through the end here, but feel free to ask any questions.
This is Greg. Excuse me, this is Greg. I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Do you set the refresh frequency, or is it how often does it refresh?
It doesn't automatically refresh. However, there's the button right up here, or when you're switching between tabs, that's also kind of an automatic refresh. So once I go back to status, it'll automatically refresh, but it doesn't do it on its own.
Okay, so so if you haven't been into this portal for 7 days, 7 days of data is stored on the wireless portal, not in the software.
No. The data is I'm just speaking only of the display information here. The module is constantly communicating with the gateway and communicating with the server and constantly collecting data. But as far as display on your screen right here, it only refreshes when you get to the screen. So if you log out and log back in, it's going to automatically refresh. And like I said, even just switching tabs, once you go back to it, it's going to refresh again.
I'm just wondering how often it takes a data point. Not dishing it up here, but you know.
Yeah, no. Mark, what's the best answer for a device like this?
We'll look in the data, but I think it's several times a minute is typical. Anywhere from 5 to 10 times a minute is the normal, and it's a matter of how many devices are shared with that gateway. So in this case, it's probably every 6 seconds. There's probably another sample being taken.
Yeah, with more devices communicating with one single gateway, and we recommend, we can get a bunch of devices on one gateway. It just really depends on the layout of the building and where where everything would be installed. But the more devices communicating with one gateway, it just takes a little bit longer for it to cycle. But it is collecting data constantly.
Yeah, rule of thumb is about 5 times a minute.
Okay.
Does that answer your question? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All right. So for these modules, the sensor modules, the only thing that we're going to display here on the status is the temperature. You have the option to edit device information just by clicking on these little pencils here. Real simple stuff. You can unregister the device or remove it from the folder. It's really just some additional features that don't really pertain. Setup. Once you've registered your module and you have, depending on how many temperature sensors you have, you'll click here to add a sensor. Click temperature or whatever is appropriate. ETS in this case, thermocouple. Click next. Choose, give it a name, a description if you want, and choose which port on the device it's plugged into. Poor image here, but you get the idea of which port is which. Select your port, add sensor. I won't do it here though. And then that thermocouple is now able to relay the temperature data back to the module and back to the server. Let's see. Down here, we've added a feature, I believe in the account settings page. I might have run over it, but you can actually input the zip code of the where the device is located, and then we'll gather temperature data off the internet of outdoor temperature if that's information that's valuable to the user, and display it on the status page here.
Yeah, and just Matt, 1 second.
Yeah, go for it.
That we sell I won't say well, probably a majority of our sensors in monitoring remote buildings and remote facilities where they want to know this. I mentioned at the meeting in DC. They want to know what the outdoor temperature is as well as what the sensor reading is. In this case, obviously, outdoor temperature really is not meaningful, but it's a generic thing we have for all our customers. So it wouldn't apply in this case, but it's there anyhow. Sorry, Matt.
Yep, no problem. Jumping over to the alerts tab. This is where you're going to set up all your alerts and whoever's going to receive it, and et cetera, et cetera. So as you can see, they've got a bunch of different alerts based on which sensor they're dealing with, what they want to be alerted of, where the alert's going to, email, text message, whether they're enabled or not. Doesn't look like anything's triggered. We would have seen that on the home page. So they're in good settings here. However,
this is where the intern there just set this all up on her own within about 5 or 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. So if you wanted to add when you just log in as a new user and you just register your device, this page is blank. Obviously, we don't have predetermined alerts set, so you just come down here and you would add a custom alert. Choose what kind of alert you want to be notified of. Communication loss, if the device loses power or internet, or for some reason is no longer communicating with the gateway, you can get an alert via email or text message letting you know. Temperature sensor missing, if the thermocouple were to be unplugged for some reason or just stops communicating, you can get an alert about that. Obviously, too warm, too cold, they're pretty self-explanatory. Mark, the sensor, what's the sensor change one here?
If someone changes sensors, moves things around and stuff.
Like unplugs and plugs it back in somewhere else?
Yeah, right.
I have a question. This is Michael.
Yep.
So a question came up yesterday with a customer, and they asked, what happens if the internet connection is severed? How much time or how much data do the devices collect before they stop they stop working. So basically, let's say like 4-hour period goes where the internet's not working at the facility. Communication between the gateway is not working.
Right now, it only stores about 5 to 10 minutes worth of data locally, but we're in the process of changing that. Where there's a software development effort right now where they have it. They're going up. I forget how many days worth of data. I think it's like 4 days worth of data is the goal right now. That's going to be stored in the device, so that when communication is restored, it'll automatically do that. And that's just, they got that working last week, I think, and so forth. So that should be officially part of the product in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Okay.
So let me just jump into one of these here, just to give you an example of what the next page looks like. If we chose the communication lost, click next. You could type in an email address here, or select a text message number. You're not able to input a text message number here. That's like I showed you at the beginning. You gotta do that in your account settings, but they would pop up here once registered. Select the amount of time delay until you're notified. There's a lot of, especially with the communication loss, there could be just the simple reason of, something is temporarily blocking the communication between the gateway and the sensor module, and it'll automatically restore its communication once that thing is moved. So we do suggest a little bit of a delay so that you're not getting bombarded with alerts. You can even set a schedule for your alerts if you want them active only during a certain part of the day or only a couple days a week. But typically alerts are 24/7 in these cases. Let me go to another kind of alert. To warm is obviously a very popular one here. Same options with email and text messages and time delay. You'd select your temperature sensor here if you had multiple. And then obviously your temperature threshold. So this right here would be, you'd receive an alert if the temperature rose above 22.2 degrees Celsius for more than 30 minutes. An alert would go out. There's no minimum on the delayed minutes here, so as soon as the temperature went above that number, you can get alerted of it. I will say also that on the account settings, there's a box that's checked that will automatically send you recovery alerts. So if the communication is recovered, or the temperature drops below the threshold and you're back in the comfortable zone here, you'll also receive a follow-up alert saying communications restored, temperature is restored, or whatever the case may be. Any questions on the alert options here? Okay. So alerts, obviously, a big feature for these kind of devices. Also the charts, like we've been talking about, we are storing all this temperature data, so we give you, the user, the ability to review that and review it as far back as since the device has been installed. So you'd simply select which sensor you want to take a look at, and select a time period. I'm going to go to this year just so we can get a lot of data. These have been installed for several months now, so we should have a lot coming up.
Is it calendar year?
Yes. Yeah. So this is just from January 1.
Okay.
And you see there's a lot of data points here, and the temperature is constantly between -76 and -84 Celsius. If you scroll over it, you'll see the top right of my screen is just going through a whole bunch of data points and timestamps. Now with this graph is actually interactive, where you have the ability to highlight a section and zoom in, so you can see a little more data. And I'll get even closer just so we can see what these lines are looking like. So there's obviously a consistent cycle between these temperatures. And you can zoom in, keep zooming in as much as you want. get a very detailed timestamps and data points. And also, you'll see on the bottom left here the ability to download this data into a CSV file if you wanted to review it even further. Warning though that the bigger the time period and is obviously the more data that it's going to download. A chart like this might be several tens of thousands data points in an Excel spreadsheet. But yeah, it looks like this chart is good. Temperature's not really going out of range. There's a little gap here. Maybe we zoom in here. So looks like there is something going on between these hours on the 11th that they might want to look at. For some reason, it didn't cycle. For whatever reason, it lasted a couple hours. But just wanted to give you guys the view of the graph and show you how much data that these things are collecting.
Matt, show the moving little cursor because that shows each individual sample.
Yeah. The little balls going up and down the line there, and data points are changing in the top right as we do that. So if you're looking for a specific time, all that's there. And like I said, you highlight a section on the graph and it'll automatically zoom in. If you just double click the graph, it goes back to the original, your original data graph. And then there's all these options for the time period. You can even select a custom time period if you want to go back even further, or select a 5-day period from Wednesday to last Monday or something like that.
I have a question.
Please.
This is Greg. So in future versions of the software, will you allow a facilities manager or user to specify the sampling rate, do you think? Because honestly, this is probably too much data. I mean, there's nothing wrong with having more, I guess. But, having 10 data points a minute for a device like a -80 freezer, for instance, might be too much. Has there been any talk about allowing them to choose the sampling rate down to as fast as you can do it, I guess?
No, not really. What we're doing is when it runs on battery backup, we slow down the sampling rate just to conserve RAM space in the memory chips.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
But right now we have pretty massive servers, and right now we're storing a lot of data, and and basically what it is it's a temperature and a timestamp and a MAC address of a device. So there's only 3 data elements per sample. So it doesn't take up all that much disk space, and there's a lot of people who really like the granularity. So far it's not a storage issue for us. The other thing you should know is we did a thing for one of the universities was a lot of our devices, and we figured that 3,000 devices, the data transfer rate on the internet connection was about the same as 3,600 bits per second, like an old dial-up modem. So it's really not that much data being transmitted either. So far it hasn't been a constraint, and doesn't seem, right now we're just going to continue to sample at a pretty high rate until there's some reason we have to not do that anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
And also,
and when it downloads to the CSV, is it converting into the chart, or is it how does it look in the CSV?
CSV is a file format, comma separated variable, and
right.
So you can, depending where you want to put it, most people put it into Excel. Excel will import that directly. Sometimes you need to put it into a regular database, a SQL or Access or some other database. And and as Matt cautioned, like he showed all the samples so far this calendar year, that's a lot of samples. And we've Dartmouth and a couple other places have tried to download large things, and they exceeded the capacity of Excel. I think Excel, it used to be 64,000 entries, and I think it's now it's several 100,000 entries. but they've exceeded that because they had more than 1 million data points that they tried to download. So you want to, so what appears on the chart and visually right now, Matt, if you hit that download CSV,
Yeah.
Does yours set up to go to Excel? It's on whatever your computer set up.
Yeah.
So you guys, will it be just the three data points you talked about, the timestamp, the MAC address, and the temperature?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Matt, I'm sorry. Go back. Let's not get into that. But anyhow, so the you know, not too many people really download that. We've had some researchers doing that. We've had some insurance companies doing temperature data in warehouses and in other locations that they're trying to analyze patterns. And in restaurants, they're insuring walk-in refrigerators, and they're trying to get a sense of what happens at a granular level in walk-in refrigerators. So.
But if they actually wanted this graph, they would really just need to do a screenshot versus downloading the CSV of the data and then converting it over to a graph, right?
Yeah, and you know, I think we may have mentioned in Washington that, you know, one of our clients is a beer warehouse, and they have to submit audit reports, and that's really what they do is they do the graph of the time period, and they do a screenshot, and then they send it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, Matt.
Yep, no problem. Let's see here. All right, so charts, great. The last tab is just we call it technical info. It's just letting you know which gateway the device is communicating to. It's not listing the name; it's just listing its MAC address and the last time it communicated. So if you get a communication loss alert, you can come here and check and see when the last time it communicated. Although that information would be in the alert as well. So not all that important. Yeah.
Quick question, just for the non-IT types, can you give the 30-second definition of a MAC address and how that's different from an IP address? So if somebody asked them about it, they could tell them briefly.
I will hand that over to Mark.
Yes. A MAC address is a unique serial number for anything with an Ethernet or a communications capability. So like a router would have a MAC address, a PC has a MAC address, our gateway has a MAC address. We have a MAC address for everything. It's a unique number, and so it gets stored. For the devices, we give the people the chance to give it a meaningful name, and that's where Matt showed you with the pencil little icon. They're now calling this I think it's Catherine Y. Wong, CYW 7 freezers. So that's what was meaningful in that lab. And then BB404 is meaningful to them. I have no idea what it means. Our database only has the MAC address, and then there's a separate table that says, oh, call this MAC address these names. And so it's just a unique identifier like a serial number. Now, separate from that is the IP address. An IP address is if you're on the internet and you're communicating with the internet protocol, everything needs to have an IP address, which is a series of 4 numbers, each ranging from 0 to 255. And so the gateway asks for and gets assigned a MAC address from the local router or Ethernet switch or whatever is there, and then when it communicates, the router knows, hey, that's this device. So the MAC address is a unique identifier for a particular piece of equipment, anything that has a potential to communicate, and the IP address is typically it's a randomly assigned number for device communications. Our individual sensors and so forth do not have IP addresses. The gateway is the only CORIS device that actually gets an IP address. Is that helpful or not?
Perfect. Exactly okay. What I was looking for.
Okay, good.
And I do have one more question before we move on. Related to, could you click over to the technical info section again, please? So I noticed that you can make changes like transferring ownership. Is this set up with the account settings so there's an admin level and then a user level so that you don't have, maybe a graduate student modifying things that you don't want modified?
You're kind of. Oh, Mark, go ahead.
No, you do it, Matt. You're good.
Were you going to talk about sub accounts?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I was just about to jump into that kind of information. We have a section down here called sub-accounts.
Mm-hmm.
So if, let's say it's a exact scenario that you just came up with, so we'll just use that. So you have all your devices listed on one primary account, but you want to have other people be able to access the information, but not all the information or what have you. We have sub-accounts here where the primary user can come in here, send an invitation for somebody else to join CORIS on this level. And once they've registered and accepted and created their own username and password, they become a sub-account on this account. And from there, you can modify permission levels and access what they have access to. If they can, schedules really isn't applicable here, but if they can change schedules or move devices into different folders, et cetera, or not be able to look at download graphs, that kind of information. So yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
This account doesn't have any, but all of that is available. So yeah, that was sub accounts. I was going to get into that. Also, just quickly, folders. We just have these automatically installed. Let's see, when I was registering a device, I don't think I mentioned, but you have, once you name it and type in the numbers, you have the option of placing devices in the folders directly here, or once you have all your devices registered, you can create folders and organize them however you want to organize them. For the sensor modules, the folders are simply a way to organize, and it doesn't have any additional functionality. For some of our other devices, like the outlet module and the thermostat, from the folder level, you can control all the devices in that folder with one schedule or one click, which is why we have them. But in this case, just organizing it maybe by rooms or locations, floors, however. I'll also mention we have a help section down here. This right now we're in the midst of really doing a big upgrade on this, and hope to have that running within the next couple of weeks. But yeah, we'll have a whole different all these sections plus some others and some videos and stuff for users at their ready whenever necessary. But also obviously our contact information will be listed as well. Mark, am I missing anything for these devices?
No, I think and this is just a temperature sensor, a cryogenic temperature sensor. That's all it is. So there's not a lot, lot of other control or other information. So I think for most of the customers you have, they're going to have one or more of these. This is probably what you want to do.